Okay, so we're going to kick off now. Thank you so much, everyone who's joined. We're really excited by the number of students on the call today. So this call is aimed at all students, but particularly final year students, and we're looking at getting ready for the workplace. So just briefly, some housekeeping. The chat function is disabled, but you can use the Q&A for any burning questions. Because we've got quite a lot to get through, we might not have time to go through the Q&A in the session, but everything you say will be recorded and we'll make sure we get back to you, and we'll post emails and things in the chat by the end. So you will have a way to have your questions answered. So I'm just going to pass over to our CEO, John Cowman, just to kick off the webinar now.
Good evening, everyone, and how are you? I'm so pleased to be able to join you this evening and to see so many of you on the call. This is my first one of these calls, so I'm doubly excited about that. The purpose of tonight's call will be to introduce you to me, more importantly, to introduce you to the panel and all of their expertise and their knowledge, and most importantly, to introduce you to the wonderful organization that is the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy. So my name is John. I'm the Chief Executive Officer, joined the CSP in January on my birthday, the best birthday present ever. And I'm coming up to 5 months in the organization now. It's a delight to speak to you and to speak to people who are in the shoes that I was in about 19 years ago when I was finishing my degree in physiotherapy and having trained in Trinity College in Dublin. And that journey for me started as it did for you. Hard work at GCSEs, good choices at A-levels, and doubly hard work at A-levels to be able to access this really fantastic career. And what a fantastic career it is. And I'm really pleased to be able to say to you that my career has spanned a lot of the options that are available to you. And I purposely joined physiotherapy having had a lot of rehabilitation in my teens, and because of the breadth of this career and what's available to you as qualified physiotherapists. I know that you are at that point now when you're getting ready for the workplace. And there will be parts of that that might be daunting to you. There will be parts of it that will be new to you, and there will be parts of it that will require you to make some really good choices now moving forward. But, you know, hey, you've made a great choice already, so believe in the choices that you'll make for the future, as I did. I've had a career that has spanned early on academia, and working in universities and also lecturing. It spanned several different disciplines in pediatrics, neurology, musculoskeletal, learning disabilities, respiratory, and very complex rehab for intractable conditions. And it has given me a sense of what it's like to be part of society, part of communities, and being able to impact on numerous lives. But more importantly, it impacted on my life and has made me a very, very happy professional, both in the career and alongside it in health and social care. My background more recently is executive management, and I've exercised that in both the health and social care markets. And to be able to be talking to you tonight as the CEO of an organization that I hold in the highest regard is simply the greatest privilege for me and makes it all worthwhile. And remember that all of you out there could be the future chief executive of this organization or other organizations. But in the meantime, it's about getting ready for the workplace and being able, as I said to you, to make the right choices for you. So I'd like to give you some introduction to the panel in the first place, if that's okay, so you understand the breadth of expertise and the breadth of commitment that we have in this organization to helping you make this the very best career it can possibly be. So I'll hand over to you, Daisy, in the first instance, just to give us an intro into your role at CSP.
Fab, thank you so much, John. So you'll be hearing from quite a lot of me and Nina through the presentation. So we're going to be going through the slides, getting you ready for the workplace. So for now, I'll just leave it that I am the trade union organizer for the South East Coast, the North East and the East of England regions. And me and Nina kind of work with the rep teams and build those and make sure members are supported in the workplace. And talking of reps, we're really delighted to have Mariah and Kerri with us today, who are reps at their respective trusts. So I'll just go down my screen. I can see Mariah next. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Mariah. I'm a rotational physiotherapist. I've been doing physio for, I've been qualified since August, so not that long, but it feels longer than that. But yeah, I love it. I'm just asked to jump on here just to basically talk about my experiences. I run a YouTube channel where I share my experiences, and I have done throughout my time as a student as well, and continue to do so now as a qualified.
Thanks, Mariah. Nina, do you want to go next?
Yeah, my name's Nina Strathy and I'm the trade union organiser in Scotland. So I work alongside Daisy in the organising team. And then finally, Kerri.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Kerri. I'm an assistant practitioner working in the community at the moment. I'm on the apprenticeship course, so I go into my final year in September, and I'm also the student officer for the associate network.
Fantastic. And thank you so much for all being here this evening. And what you should sense from our presence here is our deep commitment to you as students as you move into this next phase of your career, but also recognize the volunteerism that is exceptionally important to us here at the CSP, in the sense that we have stewards and we have others who give their time because they are passionate about this career, because they are passionate about you being the best physiotherapist you can be, and because they are passionate about the profession as a whole. So let me talk to you a little bit about the CSP. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that the CSP is not only an exceptionally important organization within the UK, but I've just returned from the European region of World Physiotherapy, and I can tell you that our notoriety and our presence on the world stage is absolutely enormous. And all countries within the world look to the UK and to the CSP for guidance, for innovation, and for our presence in this really important market. We are the only professional body solely for physiotherapy in the UK, and that covers all 4 countries in England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and Scotland, where we have a presence in all of those countries. We are first and foremost the professional body. And that means that we take care of all of the standards of physiotherapy for the UK. We ensure that those standards are linked to the regulator, and you will know probably quite a lot about the Healthcare Professions Council, HCPC. Our relationship with that regulator is second to none. We have a really strong influence on the standards that they uphold, and we are then able to make sure that that's upheld within the professions and our members. Our membership covers 65,000 people, and that, having looked at the membership bodies across Europe last week, that is the highest percentage of members out of those who are registered in those countries to practice physiotherapy. So that tells you that this organization is something that you should at least consider, if not make a really high priority. Now, many of you are already members as students. Some of you on the call will be members because you are associates, so you are working and learning at the same time. But our membership also spans qualified physiotherapists, practicing therapists, but also retired therapists, where we have a really strong and really healthy retirement association. And that gives you a sense that even when people have finished their practice, they remain members of this organization because of that sense of community and their ongoing commitment to the profession. We also have a range of other membership types where people join us at various points in their career. We're an educational body. We ratify and accredit every single physiotherapy course in this country. And what's important to note about that is there is no mandatory or statutory need for universities to do that, but they choose to do that for 2 reasons. One, it states very clearly that their courses are of a high enough standard to be accredited by the Chartered Society. And secondly, because they want those standards to be ever increasing. And that is the job that we do. We are also a trade union, and we are there to support all of our members in all of their employment with any questions or any issues that they have with their employment. We do that, as Daisy said, through our representatives and also through our stewards. And we are there to make sure that when you need us, we are there for you. That's a really important feature of what we do. And the other thing that we will talk about later on, but it's an important feature to say up front, is that being a member of the CSP gives you that professional orientation, access to all of our resources. It gives you access to further education. It gives you access to employment support, but it also gives you, and this is very important, it also gives you public liability insurance of up to £10 million. Now, why do I mention that? Is because having canvassed all of 31 countries last week in Europe, we are the only professional body to offer all 4 of those elements to our membership. And what I can also tell you, and I'll use our closest neighbours as an example of this, in the Republic of Ireland, where I trained and I was a membership of the ISCP, which is a fabulous organisation and actually covered under the same royal charter as the CSP. The cost of being a member there does not cover you as a trade union, does not cover your PLI insurance, and there are several other benefits. And the value of the CSP membership, I can say with certainty, is almost half the price of any other country in Europe. And that's another reason to consider it. I see this as one of the best value options possible. So for you to qualify in this profession and to consider this is an absolute priority. I spoke a little bit earlier about the choices you're about to make, and I'm sure everybody on this call has a different emotion about what it's like to qualify. I'm sure some of you will be deeply relieved that you've reached the end of this part of your journey. Some of you might be going on to study further. Some of you will have already made choices about the speciality that you want to work in. Some of you will want to explore those specialities through a range of options in rotations across a range of industries. Some of you will already have jobs. Some of you might be thinking of traveling. Some of you might be thinking of applying for your first job. Whatever place you are in as a qualifying student right now, or indeed as a student that is earlier on in the career, I can tell you absolutely for sure that the CSP will be able to support you in all of those choices and be able to bring you into the workplace with confidence, with protection, both from an insurance perspective and with protection from an employment perspective. So I am certain, and having been a member of the CSP even when I was working in Ireland, I am certain that this is a great value opportunity for you. And I'm really happy now to hand you back over to the panel, who will give you more detail of all of those benefits, more detail of what we do. Good luck if you're finishing your dissertations. Good luck if you've got that final anatomy or final patient assessment to do. I am absolutely certain you will do great. Welcome to this profession. It changed my life. I hope it changes yours, and I'll hand you over to the panel.
Oh, thank you so much, John. That was such a lovely endorsement of the CSP, and it was really great to find out a bit more about your career. So John's our very new CEO, so we're very grateful that you've joined us. Thank you. So for the next stage of the webinar, we're going to kick off with a sort of checklist of things that you need to do to get ready for the workplace to make sure it's really practical in the help that we're providing. So we've got this checklist here, and then later on in the webinar, we're going to talk about a little bit more about what the CSP is as a professional body and trade union, as John's touched on. So you should be able to see a QR code on this slide. Not a QR code. You should be able to take a picture of this slide or make notes of these steps, just so you've got them there ready. So yeah, this is just to make this period a bit easier for you. So we're going to talk about registering with the HCPC, searching vacancies on the CSP website and finding a job, getting to know your CSP member benefits and which one's going to really help you through this period, and then getting chartered and getting that CSP membership. And then when you have got a job, we're just going to be looking at using CSP publications to understand your contract, to get to know your rights at work, and then how you can use the CSP to keep up with the profession. So hopefully this will be a sort of one-stop shop where we'll go through all of these different steps, so you'll be ready by the end of the webinar to graduate and join the workforce. So your first step on that checklist is to register with the HCPC. So John mentioned it just now, but the Health and Care Professions Council is the body which regulates 15 health and care professions, such as physiotherapists, art therapists, radiographers, and social workers. So the title physiotherapist is protected by the law, and it ensures that you're recognised as a professional. So to claim your professional title and practice as a physiotherapist, you need to register with the HCPC. So what is the HCPC? The primary role of the HCPC is to protect the public. So it does that by setting standards in relation to education, training and practice. It also ensures that we've got a register of those who meet the standards, so you as a qualified physio in the future. And the HCPC also takes action if professionals on the register do not meet these standards. So that's where the CSP comes in to support. So essentially the HCPC isn't necessarily on your side, it's there to protect the public. So it may never happen, but if a concern about your practice were to be raised through the HCPC, the CSP would be there to support you through that process. So we've got a team of officers who work on the trade union side to provide advice, support and representation. And should it be needed, we have an in-house solicitor who's well versed in dealing with fitness to practice cases. So don't want to worry you too much, but just so you know, the CSP is there to support should anything ever go wrong. So how do you go about registering with the HCPC? You'll need to sign up for an account, log in and create a new application on their website. So that should take you through the process if you find that online. And also just to be aware, you might have to pay a registration fee to the HCPC, and you can find out information about fees via their website.
So thinking about places that you can find work, there's lots of places to look. We've listed a few websites that you might find helpful. So one easy option is to browse these websites and you can view the live jobs, and you can also set up alerts so that you can receive them directly to your inbox. Also, as a CSP member, you receive Frontline magazine, which is our monthly magazine. So there's also advertisements in Frontline, so that's another good place to look. Different organisations have got different processes. If you're applying to the NHS, their website does provide some guidance on how you can write your application. There's plenty of general information you can look at, but in our CSP graduate handbook, there are some specific recommendations for physio graduates about how to make your placement experiences and your portfolio really stand out. And it also contains advice about preparing for an interview. So if you're a CSP student member, then you will receive a copy of the graduate handbook if you haven't already. And then the other thing just to remember is to make sure that your contact details are up to date. So as a student, you may have been using a university email address or living in student accommodation of some sort. So just make sure that when you move on from that, that your CSP account settings are up to date with your current contact details.
Thanks, Nina. So as well as the graduate handbook, there are other CSP member benefits that will help you to get ahead. So the one that's kind of discussed on the slide with this quote is the e-portfolio. So the e-portfolio provides CPD templates which help you record and evaluate your learning from different situations and experiences. So this ensures that you can identify areas for improvement, but also start recording a bank of best practice examples to draw from when you are applying to jobs. So the reason this is important is because NHS jobs usually require a good personal statement and CPD profile. So your e-portfolio will come in really handy here too. So if you have been using this as a student member, then you'll still have access to what you've created and you can add to this as you enter the workplace. So also thinking about what to actually put into your e-portfolio in terms of demonstrating CPD, the CSP has lots of CPD courses and webinars on our Learning Hub. So if you go on our website, look at our Learning Hub, you'll be able to find some things to add to your e-portfolio to kind of demonstrate that continued development and continued commitment to learning. So wherever you are in your physio career, developing and maintaining a personal portfolio is really important, but it's also a legal requirement for your HCPC registration. So the reason for that is because as part of the HCPC's audit process, 2.5% of people will be randomly selected to demonstrate competency. So those people will be asked to submit a portfolio. And that's where you can use the CSP's e-portfolio, and that will make your life so much easier. So as well as this, we've got support and resources and access to our team of experienced professional advisors. So to add to your portfolio, you've got all of these resources. And if you do want to check in and ask an expert about what to add to it, you can call on our professional advisors as well.
So as a CSP member who has then registered with the HCPC, you can then call yourself a chartered physiotherapist, and then you can use the letters MCSP after your name. So chartered status, it's a badge of excellence, and many employers do prefer you to have this, and patients also really appreciate it as well. because it shows that you're part of a UK-wide professional community and that you're committed to the highest standard of practice. Being a chartered physio means more than just being a physiotherapist, because it means that you're part of the voice of the profession.
So once you've been offered a job, you can use CSP web pages to check the terms and conditions of that job. So one of our main functions is as a trade union, and that's to protect your rights at work. So we've got resources available to help you to be empowered to safeguard these rights yourself. So you can use the QR code at the top of the slide to bookmark a guide for newly qualified physios that tells you all about what to expect from your employment contract. So it's important to note that a contract of employment is legally binding. So make sure you read it. And that's particularly the case if you're going to work in the independent or private sector. So by attending work and being paid, you're effectively accepting the terms of your contract of employment. So the signature on that contract isn't as essential as you might think it is, which means it's really important to raise anything you're concerned about before starting work or immediately after. And that's particularly the case if you've been given assurances on anything at interview. So that could be flexible working arrangements, for example, and make sure you've got that confirmed in writing. And also, if you have got any doubts about a clause in a contract, take advice from us and our union service experts if you are a member.
So this next slide will be applicable to you if you're going to go and work in the NHS, as it relates to the NHS terms and conditions. So the terms in NHS contracts have been negotiated at a national level by the CSP, along with a number of other trade unions in the health sector, and they form part of Agenda for Change, which is the agreed pay and condition structure. So the CSP was a key player in ensuring that the terms and conditions were as favourable as possible for our members. And the T's and C's refer to aspects of your working life, such as your pay, your holidays, your working hours and your leave. So Agenda for Change applies across all 4 nations of the UK, but due to devolution, there are some variations across the 4 countries. A newly qualified physiotherapist, you'll start at band 5, and the salary for band 5, again, just due to devolution and health being a devolved issue, can vary slightly from country to country, but you can expect it to be around about the 28,400 mark for your first year. Should you take a job in the independent or private sector, then the starting salary tends to be similar to the NHS, but you might find the other terms, such as your annual leave and your pension, might not be quite as good as what the NHS offers, or Agenda for Change offers, sorry. And then obviously pay is always the headline term, but it is important to note that there's a range of other terms and conditions. Most of these are detailed in the Agenda for Change handbook, but others can be determined at local level as well, or even just down to the trust, and they can be subject to negotiation with trade unions, which of course includes the CSP. So the Agenda for Change agreement encompasses things like on-call payments, sick pay, maternity and parental leave, your pension scheme, and knowledge and skills framework. So again, that's a good little bit to bookmark if you are going to work in the NHS.
So once you've accepted your job offer, you're happy with the terms and conditions, make sure you're signed up to receive CSP news and updates as your last step to stay informed about what's happening in the profession. So a lot of our members tell us that physio is really fast moving, and this is a really good way to keep in touch with any developments. So you've got Frontline magazine, which members get once a month through the door, and that's an easy to read publication with sort of member stories, news, opportunities. But we've also got our CSP email bulletins, and the one I'd really recommend is Physio News, which is our weekly email bulletin. So this kind of will have the headlines about any policy developments, any clinical developments that you need to kind of keep in touch with. And it's also got recommended jobs of the week as well. And then we've got Graduate Life, which is specifically for new graduates. So do sign up to that one as you transition to the workplace. So we've also got over 60 online forums, which we call ICSP, on our website. And these cover clinical and occupational specialisms. So when you become a member, you join this community of physios and other students who can relate to your experiences. And we'd really advise that you use these member forums to ask any questions about this next stage of the journey, and to seek advice on anything that might be on your mind, or in fact to explore a kind of a clinical specialism that you want to speak to someone who's working in that field now. So all of those should be really good to find out more about any aspect of physiotherapy that you've got a question about. So that's kind of the checklist complete. So hopefully you've got that in your mind. So we're just going to talk a little bit now again about the CSP and why you should join your professional body and trade union. So John gave a really nice introduction at the start, so I won't say too much. But what's so great about having all of these aspects combined into one is that we can be really the voice of the profession, and our members help us to raise our voice and to influence on behalf of physiotherapy in all the kind of important decision-making arenas. So I'll just pass on to Nina to talk about trade unions.
So if if you're new to trade unions, this is just a little bit of a background as to why they're so important. Again, as Daisy said, John did cover some of this, but just to recap, unions are based on the simple principle that we're stronger together than we are individually. So collectively, we can improve our working conditions and we can protect one another and offer representation and advice to our members. We also, as the CSP, we also proudly represent our members on a national stage. So we negotiate for improvements in pay and workplace standards. And we find that workplaces are much safer and they provide better care for patients, and they're more inclusive and diverse when staff are engaged in local decisions and they feel supported to speak up when things don't feel right. So as we've mentioned, the CFP champions fair pay and terms and conditions for physiotherapy staff. You probably will be aware that in the last year or two, there's been strike action taken in England and Wales by physios, and that was the first time that they've taken action over pay and retention issues. Scotland also voted in favour of strike action. Ultimately, the Scottish Government came back with a suitable pay offer. So ultimately, they didn't need to go out on strike, which was quite a good success. NHS staff do not want to be going out on strike. They want to be treating patients, rehabilitating and caring. They do not want to be standing on picket lines, but needs must. With the current staff shortages in the NHS, it's really making this more and more difficult every day. And ultimately, the workforce crisis can't be solved without better pay. We can't attract people to the profession without fair pay. And that was why there was no other option than to go out on strike at that time. And then just briefly talking about our network of stewards and safety reps, you will be hearing first from some of our reps in the Q&A session, so won't go too much into this just now. But we have stewards, safety reps, and also equality reps now, a small number of equality reps across all employers in the UK, or the majority, and they receive comprehensive training from the CSP to enable them to carry out their role and support members. So if you encounter a problem or an issue in the workplace as a CSP member, our reps can offer advice and support and hopefully help you reach a resolution. So as I say, we'll speak a little bit more about that in the Q&A section with our reps that are here today.
Fantastic. So another really rewarding way to network with our members is through our member networks. So Kerri mentioned the Associates Network when she introduced herself, so we'll talk about that later on. But we've got these kind of 3 groups of member networks for you to get involved in. And you can see there on the slide. So we've got 13 regional and national CSP networks. So based on wherever you are, you can get to know and learn from others in your area. We've also got 3 diversity networks. So those are the Black, Asian and Minority Ethnic Network, the Disability Network and the LGBTQIA+ network. So these diversity networks aim to engage and support existing members, challenge factors that limit individual opportunities and create positive change within the profession. So really looking at structural barriers as well as that kind of peer-to-peer support, which is often via WhatsApp groups. And I know a lot of members find that really helpful. So in addition to regional and diversity networks, we've got our clinical professional networks as well. So these member groups are people who work in specific areas or specialties like mental health, paediatrics, MSK, you name it. So keep your options open and do engage with a range of these that spark your interest or that relate to your protected characteristic. So joining these networks is a great way to connect and learn from others, and almost all of them will offer you some sort of resources. They can offer funding opportunities if you want to go to a conference or something like that, and they put events on as well.
So the CSP does a lot of work for the physiotherapy profession as a whole, but we also provide tailored individual support and advice. And this is also something that's really valued by our members. Our inquiries team are the first port of call. So when you need to contact the CSP, it'll be the inquiries team that you'll reach in the first instance. You can reach them by phone, email or post, and there's no question that is too big or too small for the inquiries team. Quite often they will have the answer for you on the spot because it's a question that's been asked many times before. But if it's something that needs a little bit more expert advice, we've got a team of professional advisors and also experts in the union services team where those issues can be escalated. And the CSP, as we've mentioned before, it also provides legal services to members as well.
Thanks. So not the most exciting topic now, but you will need to prove that you've got the appropriate professional indemnity for your practice. So I'll just talk through the CSP's insurance scheme and what that actually means. So as John said, this is something we provide as a professional body, and it's at no additional cost to your membership fee. So just to be clear, most employers will already have an insurance scheme that covers you while you're undertaking the duties of that specific role under your contract of employment. So for example, the NHS will cover you while you're working within the NHS in your role. However, you'll not be insured by this should you venture into private practice. So private practice is broad and covers activities like giving advice to a friend or doing some extra hours at the local rugby club, as an example, but any sort of clinic that you run privately is included in that. So our professional liability insurance has two strands: medical malpractice and public liability. And the insurance covers all activities within the scope of physiotherapy practice in whatever setting you work. So you can pay separately for this insurance, but it would likely cost as much as your CSP membership for the year anyway, and an individual would not be able to purchase the 10 million cover that your CSP membership provides. So if you want to find out more, I'd advise looking on the website. It's not too complicated, but if you did want to learn more about the insurance scheme, then it's all there for you. So big QR code to sign up now if you'd like to, and I'll just explain why it's really good to sign up as a student now before we wrap up and move to the Q&A. So CSP student membership is £3.85 a month, and I'm just going to explain the different categories of membership that will be relevant to you right now as you finish. So there is a big financial saving to be made if you sign up now while you're still a student. And that's because as a student member, you'll automatically be enrolled onto our graduate affiliate membership when your course finishes. And this membership allows free access to some of your student member benefits until you upgrade to chartered status. And the purpose of this sort of rolling membership is to give you time to find the right role once you graduate. So all student members are offered up to 12 months free graduate affiliate. So it keeps you with your student benefits at your ePortfolio or whatever it is that you use, and you don't lose access, and it's completely free while you look for a job. So once you're ready to become chartered and gain access to the additional benefits that you'll need in the workplace, so that's your union support, your insurance, all of that, you can upgrade your membership online, and we'll give you 3 free months of chartered membership if you upgrade within 12 months of your course finishing. And you can see on the slide that's worth over £110. So really is key to sign up now. The cost of CSP membership once you're chartered is £36.85 a month. And remember, this is a really comprehensive package of everything you need to practice safely and confidently. And as John was alluding to as well in his introduction, most professions will require you to purchase these services separately. So the CSP is quite unique in this kind of package deal. So I had a little look online and I found a couple of comparisons. So the Chartered Institute for Marketing costs £18.75 a month, and that doesn't come with any sort of workplace support or insurance. So that's literally just your chartered status. And trade unions for just purely the trade union support and not the insurance, not the chartered status. I found some online that was sort of around £20. So there is this kind of one-stop shop idea that really brings everything all together. So you've got your chartered status, access to legal advice and trade union support, workplace insurance, and remember your CPD and your member benefits. So you can just kind of get on with things, provide the best care for your patients, and know that you're protected in the workplace.
So just thinking as well about our graduate hub, this is something that's going to be really useful for you as a CSP member. For this next stage, it just aids to smooth transition, the period between studying and the world of work. So mentioned the graduate handbook before, and that outlines the steps that you need to take on your graduation, and it delves into the career choices that are available to you, whether that's in the NHS or private practice, independent sector. And it also provides physiotherapy-specific advice for finding your first job and excelling at interview. I'm sure you can find lots of tips for doing well at interview, but this one is specific to getting that physiotherapy job. And it also outlines where to find the support, just to enable you to thrive in the workplace when you're new, and you know, you're going from student to work, and it just supports you through that period. So this wraps up the presentation section of this evening's event. Hopefully that's given you some useful information, and we really look forward to welcoming you as a new graduate member of the CSP, and wish you all the very best with finding work. If you're not already a student member, just as Daisy was saying, you can use the link, the QR codes in this slide, to join up. And you can also use this if you're an apprentice or a student support worker, because you might want to make use of the extra benefits for people in these roles. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And we're now looking forward to moving on to the Q&A portion of our talk tonight and hearing from our fabulous reps.
Fabulous. Thanks, Nina, for wrapping that up. This is the bit I'm most excited for, to be honest. I think it's really useful to be able to hear from people who've just transitioned into the workplace. So Mariah and Kerri, just to kick off, why did you choose physiotherapy in the first place, and what was your route into the profession? Should we start with Mariah?
So I chose physiotherapy because I've always wanted to be a physio since I was a teenager. It was just like one work experience, and I just knew from then. So my route into physio was I did an undergrad in sport and exercise science, and then I did my pre-reg masters in physiotherapy. Yeah, that was like my route into it, but I just love everything about the profession. I think the big thing that stands out to me is that you get to see the growth that you can do from a patient, seeing them from day one when they come in to getting them to the point when they leave. Yeah.
Fantastic. And Kerri?
Yeah, so I choose physio, just really wanted to help people really and help improve their lives. I did a sports therapy degree straight from school. Didn't really want to go into that, so I did an access course to get onto undergrad. I started my undergrad degree, but unfortunately had to leave halfway through for medical reasons. But then I became an assistant, and then from there joined the apprenticeship scheme when it started.
Brilliant, thank you. And it's good to have those kind of diverse routes into the profession represented. So the CSP has all these opportunities for students and new grads that we've discussed in the slides. So we've got our diversity networks, the associate network, and our trade union rep roles. So I was wondering if you could both talk through your sort of roles that you've taken on with the CSP, maybe starting with Kerri this time, so the associates network and your rep role.
Yeah, so I became part of the associate network as a student officer in earlier this year. I can't remember exactly. I think it was March. And just really wanted to be a voice for like all the students that are also support workers. It's quite can be a unique area. You don't have to be apprentice, you know, you can be doing bank support worker work. It doesn't have to be regular. So yeah, just wanted to kind of give us a voice really within the CSP. And again, with the CSP steward role, I just wanted to have the opportunity to make like positive changes in the workplace, but for patients and for us, for like my team. So yeah, those why I joined those things.
Fab. And Mariah?
Like Kerri said, I wanted to have a voice in how things are in the workplace and help improve things in that way. I'm very vocal about how much I love physio and how much I love being a physio. So I feel like it's a good role for me to be able to advocate for my colleagues by playing that role, by being a student. But yeah.
Fab, thank you. And yeah, just to note for anyone on the call, if you do want to become a rep, there's loads of signposting on our website, and you do all of this work within your paid time. So you're not doing it as a sort of volunteer role, it's within your paid working hours. The training and all your expenses are all covered by the CSP. So it's sort of, but we're kind of make it easy as possible for you to take on this role, and we want it to be empowering and not to detract from your personal life or your day job. So yeah, thank you so much for talking us through those roles. Kerri, can I just ask another question about the associates network? So I know there's a lot of focus on sort of career development as part of that network. Is there anything that you'd suggest to people on the call to have a look for like any events or things you've got coming up?
Yes. So we're hoping to do things throughout the year, but there's a joint webinar next week with the West Midlands network that'll be really good. We're going to start doing things around more joint webinars around just all those transferable skills, really, communication, things like that. So just keep an eye out on social media really seems to be the way, or ICSP definitely will be showing on there.
Fab, thank you. So the next question is sort of more general about starting work. So how did you feel starting your first role in the workplace? And we'll go to Mariah first.
So for me, I didn't really, when I started, I was pretty confident that I would be comfortable. I feel like you usually kind of like fear that you're gonna get imposter syndrome and things. I didn't feel like I got all of that. I feel like I went in and I was pretty much like, I know what I'm doing, I know how to do this, and if I need support, I can ask for support. So I felt very comfortable. It also helped that my team was very welcoming as well. I think it's very important when you're coming into the trust. It's just having people who are there for you and you know who you can go to if you need anything. So for me, it wasn't really that challenging in that sense. The only thing that was challenging sometimes was a bit when people would question my decisions on certain things, which would be so simple. It would be kind of just like, oh, why did you choose to do this instead of that? So at points, it kind of felt like I was a student at times. But once I built those relationships with those colleagues, they kind of like understood how I worked and I understood how they worked, and I don't really face that anymore, really.
Oh, brilliant. That's really good to hear. So yeah, developing those relationships was sort of core to then feeling more confident in the workplace. That's really good to hear. You've got that supportive team as well. What about you, Kerri? So how did you feel starting your first role?
Nervous, really excited. I managed to use the little bit of experience from starting the undergrad course just to take into my assistant role, really. You know, all those kind of skills are transferable no matter what job or what area you go into first, and they'll keep with you as you go through your career, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I've talked to other physios as well who say that just bring that enthusiasm from being a student. So when you're a student, you're so kind of curious and you want to find everything out. And just remember that in your first kind of few months or years in the workplace, you're still expected to be asking questions and finding things out. So don't be shy to ever ask. And also, I kind of get the sense that a lot of physios are so proud of their profession, which is really brilliant. And they really want you to ask questions because they want to answer them and they want to kind of help you along the way. So yeah, never be scared to ask, basically. No questions too big or too small. So for these students on the call, they're probably in their final year, maybe they're in their second year. They'd be looking for tips. So what helped you with the transition from a student to being in the workplace? And we'll start with Kerri first.
So for me, it's just remembering like your learning's only just starting, really. Like you learn so much as a student, but actually then you learn even more as you go through. And then just again, just really what I said before, in that all of your skills that you learn on placement and from any job really that you've done or maybe done in life, we know whether it's working in a shop or whatever, you'll have skills that you'll be able to use. So don't forget that.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, that's really useful actually, because a lot of what you learn as a physio is kind of communication, and that's the main skill that you'll be bringing. So yeah, a lot of that will come from other work that students might have done. And also that's so transferable to the rep role, isn't it? So all the questions that you ask as a physio to find out about someone's condition, a patient's condition, you will kind of use that investigative nature in your rep role if you did want to become a workplace rep. So Mariah, what helped you with your transition to qualified?
So I've already touched on the support I got from colleagues and everything, but I also had preceptorship, which I've finished now. But if you're not sure what preceptorship is in my trust, the way we did it is we had 4 days of in-person training. It was an MDT approach, so we were there with nurses, midwives, and we learned like how like basically skills that would help us transition from being a student into your qualified years. That goes over the whole first year, and it's getting you to fill out competencies for your specific role, so like as physio, and it also gets you to do MDT things, so like reflections as well. Another thing that helps me also is I keep reflections, not just on my channel, I do video reflections, but I also use like informal reflections. So I have a Word document where every other day I will write in something that happened, because I feel like it's nice to look back on and the little things you forget about them. Also, as we mentioned before about the CSP having the little portfolio, I personally don't use the portfolio as actually as a main portfolio for myself, but what I do is I use the resources on there in terms of like the Gibbs cycle, things like that. Because sometimes I find when I'm writing reflections, it feels a bit repetitive if I use the same format every time. So it's nice to like spice it up occasionally.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, that's exactly what it's there for. So you've got those sort of CPD templates to draw out what's going on with your experience. So like what went well, what didn't go so well, that kind of SWOT analysis. And there's physio specific CVs on there that show you how to lay it all out. So yeah, as Mariah says, it's not just the portfolio, there's all these sort of reflection templates as well, which should be useful as you go along. So finally, before I'm going to take some questions from the audience, actually, because we've got a bit of time. But what is your takeaway for students about to graduate? So what are your top tips? Let's start with Mariah.
My number one tip is definitely be honest, in terms of be honest with yourself about what you don't know, and be honest with your colleagues as well, because yes, there's an element of be confident and, you know, fake it till you make it to an extent. But if you don't know something, someone may be in the same boat and may not have that confidence to be open about it. There's always going to be someone who's in the same position as you. So I think definitely speaking up, trying to seek that feedback, or like even just asking colleagues simply like, oh, how did you find out? How was that? I think that's very important. And that was something that took me a while to grasp. When it's important to ask, it's not a weakness to ask or to show that you don't know something, and being very proactive. So in terms of if you don't know something, write it down, go home, read up about it, just asking for those opportunities to spend time with other members of team so you can learn what they're doing is like, I think it's the big thing to do. It develops you massively, I'd say.
Fantastic. Thank you. Those are really good tips. Yeah, I think that's really right. Getting the balance right between being honest and being confident is really key, I think. Kerri, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, mine's very similar in that you just keep, again, what I kind of said earlier, just you're still learning, you know, take that enthusiasm, like you said, from when you're a student, take all the opportunities that can be given to you, even still as a band 5, you know, go and ask to shadow different teams, go and ask to work with different people within like the MDT. Just take everything you can whilst you are doing those more junior roles.
Fantastic, thank you. Yeah, those are really brilliant takeaways. So hopefully everyone on the call has taken those on board. So that kind of wraps up the Q&A that we had planned, but we've got kind of 10 minutes or so. So Nina, is there anything obvious in the chat that we should be answering? Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. So just picking up on, there's a couple of comments about how the CSP is supporting our neurodiverse members. Well, firstly, I'm really sorry to hear that you've had a bad experience of that. That sounds something that's been really difficult for you to go through. Just to pick up on how the CSP is supporting our neurodiverse members. Firstly, I would absolutely encourage you to join one of the, well, we've got 3 diversity networks, but the disability network in particular. That's how you can drive change from within, and you can have influence. Your voice will be heard. So if you're not a member and you identify in that way, I would absolutely encourage that. Secondly, we have been running a pilot on a quality rep. So I spoke a little bit earlier about the fact that we've got steward and safety reps. We've got about 700 stewards in the UK and about 350 safety reps. And we've been running a pilot of about 40 equality reps. So we only have equality reps in a handful of employers. The pilot has been running for about 3 years now and is now coming to an end. It's at the stage where it's being reviewed and reported on. But we're very, very hopeful that that will be expanded, because we've seen our equality reps make some amazing inroads. They have supported a lot of members, whether it's to do with a disability, whether it's race or sexuality. They've really helped to put reasonable adjustments in place for those who need them. So we would be really hopeful that by rolling that out further, we can support more members who need that. And the final thing just to say about how we're supporting our neurodiverse members and other members who require reasonable adjustments are with our network of reps. As I say, we've got well over 1,000 reps across the UK, and we have training days often for these guys. So we are making sure that we've got reasonable adjustment in place for any sort of CSP events, not just the reps training days, but any CSP events that we're holding. So that might be a quiet breakout room for anybody that needs to use it, printing materials in dyslexia friendly fonts, just making sure that we've got anything in place that we need to for our members. So it absolutely is a work in progress, and I suspect that there will be obstacles that you butt into depending on where you work. So you might find that some employers are more supportive and the CSP has more of a presence in those places, but yeah, please continue to make those issues known, and know that that is something that CSP really does care about and wants to help our members with.
Thanks so much, Nina. Hopefully that was helpful to the people asking in the chat. I'm just having a little skim. So someone's asked for a session on preparing for Band 5 interviews, and we've only got 8 minutes left. But I was wondering, Mariah, if you've got any, if you can remember your interview and if you've got any sort of preparation tips that you could share with that person.
To prepare for my interviews, I was on placement at the time when I saw my job offer come up. So I spoke to my supervisor at the time and asked them for any tips. I made sure I revised topics under each speciality, because you never know what type of question you may get. Because I've gone for a rotational role, I knew it would be pretty broad in versus if I went for something static. I made sure that, what else did I do? So I did that quite a bit, mostly just speaking to other people, to be honest, who were already in those positions, just so I could understand what they went and how they went about it, and also relaxing and trying to be myself as well, because I feel like when you're in an interview, you just stress out, and I was stressing. I'd say go into it with a mindset that not like over the confidence point, like, yeah, I've got this, but like in terms of the sense like, okay, they asked me for an interview for a reason. They're interested. Now let's just prove to them what I said in my personal statement is correct and why I deserve the role. That's kind of the approach I would say today.
Brilliant, thank you. That's really helpful. Just going to have a little look through the chat. Kerri, do you want to talk about your placement that you're doing at the moment, just because it sounds so brilliant and we were talking about it prior to the call?
Yeah, so I am at Great Ormond Street Hospital. So it's a very specialised hospital for children. Currently covering PICU, paediatric intensive care, and CICU, which is cardiac intensive care unit. Some of the things I've seen just this week, I've seen a lung transplant, a heart transplant, lots of congenital heart conditions that are repaired with surgery. Unfortunately, some very acutely unwell children. But yeah, it's really interesting, and just kind of managing those patients is really difficult at times, but yeah, very rewarding as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds absolutely brilliant. Sounds like a really good placement. So I was just having a look. The other question I can see in the chat is about how often you do reflections in the workplace. So kind of what you were talking about, Mariah, but Kerri, if you do reflections as well, either of you happy to come in and just say kind of how many and what kind of things you're writing and how much time you spend on it?
Yeah, I mean, whilst I'm on placement, do one a week, but that's because I'm doing other learning around it as well. I think for me personally, when I do graduate, it wouldn't be as often as that, but it may be certainly more if I do go on to rotations, maybe at the start, and just anything really that you feel you want to remember or has been an important part of your journey.
Great, thank you. And Mariah?
For myself, I don't really have a set amount that I do. It's more that when certain things pop up that stand out, So for example, I've done one on rib springs. I didn't learn them in university, but I had a joint session with my colleagues. So that was something that I thought would be good to do reflection on, or spending time with another team. And those things that really stand out. Sometimes I do one on in-service training. And then I do a big one at the end of my rotation, just on myself as well. So I would say on average for this rotation, I've done about like 5 or 6 across the 4 months that I've been on here. So it really differs depending on what you experience.
Brilliant. And I think for our last question, I'm going to take what Molly's put. So what would you say are the positives and negatives of rotational and static roles upon graduation? Do either of you feel like you can answer that question? Yeah.
So I'm rotational, so I'm always going to be pro-rotational. So the way I see it, if you know what you want to do and you want to go static, you can go for it. But I think even if you do know what you want to do, there's always something about going rotational. You can always shape yourself, and to be a better physio, you can always learn something no matter what you're doing, even if it's a rotation that you're not necessarily interested in. I think rotations, what appealed for me is that I was like, I had a rough idea when I started university. I thought I was going to go into neuro. Now I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. So things change with the experiences that you gain. And I think also if you're going to be based in a specific trust or hospital, it's a nice way to get to know other people, because there's sometimes where you get a patient who's on your ward that's not specifically just one speciality. You may need to do a neuro assessment or something like that. So it's nice and helpful to refresh those skills. And I feel like when you're rotational, you get more opportunities to do that versus when you're static, it's kind of something you're expected to source yourself. So I think that's a big thing to think about. But I think it all depends on like your own personal like pathway in terms of what you want to do with your career. It's really individual based, to be honest. I see the pros and cons depending on who you are, but yeah.
Very diplomatic. I think, yeah, you're right. And I've heard so many physio students say that they've completely changed their mind about what they want to do because of a placement or because of a rotation. So yeah, I think I'd be on that same kind of idea of try as much as you can. Kerri, what do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I might be a bit more controversial here, but I am a more mature student. So because I've been an assistant, I've had like a variety of experience as an assistant. So I've worked in MSK outpatients. Placement wise, I've done stroke, adults, respiratory, pediatrics now. So for me, I've kind of felt like I've already done mini rotations, so I know what area that I'd like to go into. But everyone I speak to says do your rotations.
Yeah.
And they've kind of pitched it to me as, yes, you might be able to treat someone's chest, but what if they've got a hip fracture?
Yeah. No, that's a really good point.
So I think rotations, like the advantage of rotations is you really will get a holistic approach. Again, like, you know, if you're treating someone's for their hip replacement, but they had a stroke 10 years previously, would you be the best person to help that patient, or would you be better if you'd had experience in both? So yeah, it's a difficult one. I would probably say if you've got no experience in the 3 core areas, then maybe rotation's probably a good idea. But I think it depends on your pathway to graduating as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, that's a really valuable perspective. So I think that brings us to a close. I just want to say a massive thank you, Mariah and Kerri, for taking the time out of your evening, and Nina, of course. Thank you so much for all the wisdom you've shared with everyone today. So for all our attendees, we really hope that's given you some useful information. Do use that checklist for your next steps. And we do hope to welcome you as a new member of the CSP if you're not already a student member. So just to reiterate why you should be signing up now, obviously, you get that rolling graduate affiliate membership when you graduate, and you will get your 3 months free chartered as well. So it's really worth signing up now. and really just enjoy this next stage of your student career. Take every opportunity that comes your way and grow your networks, and do tap into those CSP networking opportunities and support networks as well. And just really best of luck, and remember that we're here to support and guide you, as we've done thousands who've come before you. So that's through our inquiries service as a first port of call, and then all of our sort of specialist services beyond that. And we really hope to meet you at some point in the future. And with about 100 people on the call, I hope at least half of you become reps like Mariah and Kerri when you do graduate. So thank you so much for your time, and we will be sharing the recording and all the slides. So yeah, thank you, and have a lovely rest of your evening.